Hello, everybody. My name is Rick McCutcheon. I'm a Dynamics 365 MVP, and I'm here today on this ClickLearn webinar brought to you by MS Dynamics World. And today we're going to talk about digital adoption for Microsoft D365 customers, explained in 5 points. So let's go to our intro slide, and I'll introduce Joachim Schirmacher, the CEO of ClickLearn.
Hi, Rick. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's jump right into this because this is a hot topic in the world of dynamics today. And we hear the term digital adoption kind of thrown around. And, we used to have a term called user adoption, but I think digital adoption describes it better and is a much broader term. So why don't we start by, first explaining what digital adoption is?
Yeah, well, the idea behind digital adoption, you're right, it's different than user adoption because it implies also that we do understand not just from a user perspective, but that we have a fit with our software inside our organizations. So it is in many ways a broader term, and it's probably going to lead us to somewhere to define the buzzword of the day, which is like the digital adoption solution. So I'm hoping that we'll jump into that relatively soon. But it's true that we are using two terms, user adoption and digital adoption. And I think that Gartner, their formal way of describing these type of solutions, that's the digital adoption solution. Other vendors are using digital adoption platforms and user adoption technologies. So a lot of things are happening.
And, when we talk about user adoption, I like digital adoption because I think it's broader because, we're helping the users here, but we're also helping the people that have to support the software, build learning materials, edit videos, and all types of things around adoption. So I like the term platform and I like the term solution attached to digital adoption.
I agree.
We're going to talk about let's get into this and talk about who benefits from digital adoption.
Well, when we look at this, basically we always look at this from a triangle, and at the very top of the triangle is obviously the customer who has the enormous benefit of this. But when we look at it from the other perspective, we have a vendor. And typically a vendor has the interest that their software is adopted as well as possible because it increases stickiness, it increases the customer retention, and it reduces churn. So it's a very, very high interest from the vendor perspective. And this is obviously a focus today where we are into subscription models. The idea that we want to keep the stickiness relatively high. And we know that one of the poison pills on the road here, that is actually that users are not adopted to the software, and that's one of the main reasons for churn or lack of customer retention. When we look at the final part of that triangle, so we have the vendors and we have the enterprises, then it's the partners. Now the partners are leveraging on the vendor technology, bringing that maybe across multiple vendors, bringing that to the end client. They have the same interest in stickiness, probably broader than each of the vendors, but their interest is really that the stickiness of the client is around the entire technology platform that they're building in. And so we always look at this from the triangle, and that's what we're going to focus on today as well.
Okay, let's get into it.
All right, so I think that it might be a good idea to start off because we are driving the user adoption podcast as well, and we normally jump into a single topic and say, look, let's expand on this, but we rarely get a chance really to go into the definition of what are we actually talking about when we are saying digital adoption solution, and maybe give a little bit of a broader overview. And I'm delighted that we have that opportunity here today. So when we're looking at the digital adoption solution space, we are looking at solutions that are typically a small application that allows you to generate journeys for your users inside, preferably any software. Most of the vendors out there are only supporting web applications, but preferably it should be on any platform. And the idea is that these short journeys are contextual. And it means that, we are not just leaving the users with here's 100 different journeys you can take inside your software, but we are using the intent of the end user, which is normally the navigation that they've done inside the application, and we are using that for the foundation for presenting the right processes that are served at the moment of need for the clients. And the idea is that instead of disrupting your entire day of work with having separate training sessions, you are training in the flow of work. So not in any way disruptive. It's going to lead you into a guide that will basically navigate you through the process. And any digital adoption solution out there has a contextual element that can present users with processes and can guide the users using their current intent.
And if we start to look at this, Joachim, I think it's really important to let the viewers understand that you at ClickLearn, we're talking about a platform that delivers a digital adoption solution to the end user customer. But we're getting into this from a perception that everybody does digital adoption today. We kind of do it in our own way. Like we have one stream, we have a trainer, right? We may have some videos, we may have audio that people can listen to. So there's different things that help people, but the learners learn differently, right? So everybody has their own way of learning. And I think working with a digital adoption solution allows them to sort of pick what works for them.
Yeah, it's true that the very good digital adoption solutions are not just going into the sort of the virtual assistant approach where it actually guides the user inside the application. Then they normally tend to also go in and deliver alternative formats that can be in writing, where you simply have the instruction written down in a very, very short formalized language, but also videos, hands-on labs that allow you to take the journey on your own without disrupting the real system. And it could also be things like actually taking a test out and seeing that you can perform the process before you actually go into the live system. So a number of different formats can be added into your digital adoption solution.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so one of the things I want to cover is that traditionally this is it needs to be centralized, right? So the idea is that we deliver all the training inside a single application. Typically, we have 3 modes of training that I like to at least put my focus on. One is onboarding. That means that absolutely zero. You just came into the application. Now you want to get started. There's a certain process towards that. You need to explain what does the entire framework look like inside the application. You need to get the user confident around going and doing their first actual task and actual process inside the application. And you probably need to nudge the user as well by means of gamification and other elements that will allow the user to actually feel successful, right? Any game developer today are capable of doing that. It's actually not that many in the digital adoption space that are capable of giving that kind of idea of success to the end user. Now, the second thing go ahead.
What you're saying, being in the application, is really important because, in my experience, I've done a lot of Salesforce automation projects, and there's pieces of the workflow the sales rep doesn't use that often, like building a quote, right?
Yeah.
So once I get there, how do I do this? They showed me in training 3 weeks ago, but now I'm there. And I think having, help right where I need it is really important.
Yeah, and I normally make the distinction between what I call training, which is bringing you from zero to hero, and the idea of performance support. That is, and performance support is about serving you the right processes in the things that are extremely difficult to internalize. That could be things like processes you only do once a month, like your expense report or your travel expenses, whatever it might be. But these types of processes you will never be able to internalize. And that's where actually the performance support part comes in. So I think that there's a training aspect to this, and there's absolutely a performance support aspect. Now, the second thing, once you're onboarded inside an application, you might be able to do 3 or 4 processes, and you do those every day, and they are going to internalize relatively fast. So you're not going to rely anymore on the sort of the GPS approach that you need navigation step by step inside that process. You'll be able to do that on your own. Now you come into new areas of the application, you need maybe to learn more. You are curious, you want to learn how to do more inside the application. That could be things like collecting statistics, getting a list of orders out of the system. And that needs to be supported inside the digital adoption solution. And finally, the idea of learning new, either when your job changes or when the application changes, which is happening quite often, that you actually get a new application deployed. Now we need to tell you what's going on, what's happening, what's new in the application that you're looking at now. And the idea of learning new should be a part of a digital adoption solution as well.
So when we look at change management also, I think that a lot of times is not evident, when we're training people or changing a process, that there has to be a change management component to this, even though if we think it's simple, the user may not find it that way.
I agree. And when we are talking about change management, particularly because the ownership of whatever material you put into your digital adoption solution, it needs to be well anchored inside your organization. And that means it needs a stable anchor. The problem is that typically these digital adoption solutions, they're rolled out in the middle of some implementation process of software. And that means that at the end of that process, the entire team is gone, right? They're doing their everyday work. They're away from the project. Now, who's going to drive that next release and make sure that our digital adoption solution is still working? Either that it's not technically broken because we cannot no longer identify the elements on the screen, or it's actually broken because the process has changed inside the system. And that needs to be anchored inside the organization. This is not something that's just solved by rolling out a digital adoption solution. What is solved, however, is how easily can you maintain the changes you need to do inside your digital adoption solutions. And the really good digital adoption solution have some aspect of change management built in. They're able to register that things have changed. They're able to do something like an automated replay. So every time you get a new release, you can replay all your instructions back and get the instant feedback that this is still working inside your system. Now, this is extremely probably the most costly part of driving a digital adoption solution, is to make sure that the GPS is working. If you do not have a change management procedure in place, it's like having a broken GPS, right? Where the entire road system, or imagine that you had a GPS from your local city, it's only dated back to 1934. And you're relying on that to actually take your users on the entire journey. It's not gonna work. And so I cannot stress enough how important the entire change management, and not just system-wise, but also from an organizational perspective, that we've actually anchored this responsibility inside the organization.
And I think we really have to focus on this for the clients out there that are moving from on-premise systems to the cloud. When we worked in on-premise, that interface stayed the same all year long. You might be working on the same interface for 12 years. On an on-premise system, but in cloud computing, it's more fluid, right? You're adding things, you're changing processes, and even the vendors are coming back and changing the interface a little bit. And those updates just roll out to everybody. So, change management isn't a one-time thing. It's going to be a continuous occurrence.
Yeah, and I think you need to look at this when you are selecting a digital adoption solution that you want to fit into your organization. Remember that this is hopefully something that you're only going to buy once, because if you have 10 digital adoption solutions running inside your business, I can tell you you're doing something wrong, because you'll never build up the expertise around the solution. You'll never be able to have a central organization that can actually service the entire organization and making sure that content stays current. So the idea is that once you've selected that solution, you're going to try and stick with it. And in that sense, change management and the support for change management inside the digital adoption solution becomes extremely important, that you feel confident that this can carry you the entire way. And remember, it's not just serving the current project, it's also going to serve the 1,400 other projects that are coming right next to this.
So let's talk a little bit about cost reduction.
Yeah, so one of the major things that we see from our clients is that they're not surprised that they see a cost reduction immediately in the production of their material, because they can produce that up to around 10 times faster than what they're doing today. They can also maintain that around 10 times faster than what they are used to. What we are seeing is that there's a great impact when once you get the solution in there. You are actually helping your organization be able to self-service, because the processes are available for them, and now it's actually easier to start up a guide that will take you through the entire process, and once you're done, you've also completed your task, than it is to call up, let's say, help desk, wait for a ticket to come in, wait for the next guy that knows this particular process to become available and call you. So what we're seeing on the IT side is that we're seeing a large reduction in the number of support tickets once it's supported by a digital adoption solution.
And when I talk to ClickLearn customers, what I get back from them a lot of times is, I've got 2 people here in charge of our training and support. Well, I'm not going to be able to create all the functionality I need for a digital adoption solution unless I had a product like ClickLearn, where I can, replicate things and, build something in one language and then replicate it in 12 different languages. So I think having the right tools really, not only, it's not cost reduction, because I'm not going to hire anybody else, but it's, what I can produce with the same amount of people.
Yeah, and I agree with you. So there are a couple of trends here that we might want to pick up on when you're bringing up that topic, and they're not exactly corresponding. So one is that the number of apps that are inside the enterprise is growing extremely fast, right? So we have more apps today than we had 10 years ago, and the amount of apps today is 178 when we look at a normal enterprise. So 178 different applications. The second one you actually touched on, Rick, the idea of moving to the cloud. It means that now we are no longer the owners of our own house, because someone else is coming in and deploying changes inside our systems, right? And we have 2 options. We either keep up with the changes, or at some point we're going to be called up by the vendor saying, look, buddy, the next one you need to take, right? And this is happening across the board. That means that we have more releases coming out from the vendor side. We have more apps to support. And at the same time, our IT organization is not growing, right? They're not growing. So we're keeping them at the same size. And all of these bundled together, you simply need to be able to deliver digital adoption and user adoption much more cost effective, much higher quality, and much more securely than you've been used to.
Okay, excellent.
All right, so how about we move on to the components of a traditional authoring solution. So if we look at DAS, we basically have 2 things inside a normal DAS. You'll have an authoring solution. That's where the process owners goes in and actually determines what processes should be available in my digital adoption solution. We can do things like, typically it has a recording technology. This is proprietary for every one of the digital adoption solutions, so it's not a common standard for this, and that makes it really difficult to take your authoring solutions and bring the different processes between different authoring solutions. So there's a big vendor task there ahead of us. Now, the second part is that we have something around data collection conditionals. That could be things like, if you're in a particular order view, you have these particular settings set up, then we want to have something special happen. So we can collect data on the UI while we are serving the customer, and we can put up those conditionals inside our authoring solution. Say we only want this visible if a particular condition is met. The third thing is around analytics. We want to be sure that we can collect all the evidence from the end user. So whenever they go through process, we want to know when they start, how far did they get inside the process, are they terminating at a particular point, are they running into problems. We want a feedback section that allows the user to say, look, this process is not really working for me. And the final thing that should be in every authoring solution, unfortunately it's not, is around how do we drive the maintenance on the vendor updates, right? So whenever your Dynamics CE platform is upgrading, you need to be able to have a reasonable security that all of the processes that you've defined are still working. When we look at the delivery platform, this is typically what you can do. You can provide your walkthroughs. You can tell them what context they're popping up. You can use your data collection conditionals also inside that to make sure that the walkthroughs are only popping up when you see a specific screen or you have a specific type of user, things like that. Then there's a very good opportunity in driving a notification and push platform inside the digital adoption solution. This can be things like, the order process is right now running really slow. You should be able to push that kind of notification through the entire delivery system. And then finally, the delivery platform has some sort of installation mechanism, right? Most vendors out there say, oh, but we can serve this, using a number of different technologies. The fact of the matter is, if the platform you're trying to serve is browser-based, there's a high likelihood that you're going to be running this as an extension, a browser extension. And I want to mention this because it's really difficult in most cloud platforms to get inside and run the scripts of these digital adoption solutions. So most of the vendors are recommending that you install an extension. But there are a number of other mechanisms for serving this. It can be JavaScript inside the platform as well. But look at the installation mechanism, because this will dictate how well is the support, for instance, across mobile devices, across all of the other types of devices that your users are working with. And finally, what are the multimedia support inside the delivery platform? Videos, hands-on labs, tests that you can perform still inside the actual live application. So this is what the typical space look like. They can all define complex processes. They can all make sure that they hit your end consumers of content and that they can navigate through that, and you can get some insights.
And I think, when we look at a system where we have an authoring solution, a delivery platform, and then a reporting mechanism combined in one solution, if I'm working outside that and I'm working in siloed systems again, then it's just more work for me. Not initially, yes, but every time there's a change, I've got to go back in and kind of plug everything together again. So, working on a platform, I'm going to have a consistent flow of my own work to be able to deliver digital adoption.
Yeah, this is a big thing. I can tell you that we have people working around the day to make sure that our insights are kept consistently across multiple versions. It's actually not an easy thing. So when you upgrade your entire system, we want to make sure that you have exactly the same insights, although your process may change. So it's not an easy task, but it's something that every digital adoption solution you bring into your business should be able to do.
Okay, great.
All right. I'm gonna take a chance and move on here and look at the triangle, not the triangle of health, but the triangle at least of who benefits from the digital adoption. I mentioned the three entities that are at least something we need to look at. Now the enterprises are very at the very top, obviously. Those are the ones that everyone should be serving, whether you're a software vendor, software partner, in the digital adoption solution. The idea behind the composable enterprises, which is a term that's gaining traction inside most businesses today, the idea that we have packaged business processes that we can bring into either a single system or across multiple systems, it increases sort of the need for having a consistent digital adoption practice. And our replacement of those small Lego pieces inside our enterprise, that even encourages us more to have a consistent platform that will enable us not to drive endless in-session training with all of our end users, but have something that is digitally and self-served and that our end users actually prefer. Now, when I look at this from the digital adoption perspective, and one of the things that we have a lot of work to do on is that it should be in the following way. Now, I'm a software vendor, right? I should be delivering around 80% of everything an enterprise needs to have onboarding and performance support in my application. I should be able to deliver that. Now, secondly, the partner comes into the picture. They are bringing in more solutions into the landscape. They need to make sure that the entire coherent practice of everything, it works together. And finally, when that is done, we should have covered 95% of the digital adoption. Now, then we leave it back to the enterprise. This is the ideal scenario. The last 5% of what is specifically mine as an enterprise. These are specifically tailored processes I should take ownership over. But I should be able to, and expect that from a digital adoption solution, that the vendor can deliver directly into that, the partner can deliver into that, and I only need to care about the 5%, not about the entire thing. And the problem is that if you change it, you own it, right? That's the principle. So if you as an enterprise take a process that's coming out of the software vendor, you own it. And you got to be aware that whenever you own something here, you're taking on the responsibility of maintaining that. And this is the hidden cost behind anything you create inside a DaaS, right? You need to take care of the maintenance of that, because otherwise you have the 1934 GPS you're trying to navigate your way across USA. So when we're looking at contribution, this is the way that the ideal scenario is. I think that there are very few vendors that actually support the triangle today. I know that we are one of them. And this is obvious. You might say that's a really cheap shot because I'm bringing in my own bacon here, but it is extremely important that you can see that this triangle is working for you.
So if I could just comment on this, because this is really important. If we look at a project, and let's say we're looking at a Business Central project. Well, in a Business Central project, the customer's using Business Central. So Microsoft as a software vendor can build, in-application support. But, there's going to be 5 to 10 ISVs attaching themselves to that product from maybe 5 to 10 different vendors. And that's what the software partner is going to be working on. So when you use something like ClickLearn, I can go across all applications and give the users a consistent digital adoption solution. Where if I'm depending on in-app applications, I could have 5 different looking digital adoption platforms that I'm actually interfacing with. So I think it's really important for not only our enterprise customers to think about this, but the software partners as they're building these solutions for customers.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I really think this is important. I think that we as a digital adoption industry, we also have a responsibility for making this a lot easier across multiple platforms. So I think that we have a great challenge ahead of us in the coming years. Yeah. All right. Let me see if we can move on, because I one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about is, what are the natural DaaS boundaries and what is absolutely outside. So these are some of the elements that you will see that your DaaS will be able to do. Some of the things that is inside the natural DaaS boundaries is the RPA, the idea that we can do an automated process and do robotics around our processes. And it basically means that if you have legacy systems, maybe multiple legacy systems, and your process actually dictates that you need to create the customer 7 different places, we can probably put a robotics behind that will just allow you to fill that information in once, and then we're going to replicate it for you, right? So when you get to the end of this, every single process inside a DaaS is a candidate for doing something with robotics. That we can take that and say, okay, but we only need 7 parameters. Fill those in, we'll do the rest for you. Lean back, drink your coffee. We'll do everything in your legacy systems. If we look at sort of the outer area, and some of the things that is happening now is that the content is becoming increasingly more intelligent out there. And you just got to remember that once you're relying on the user interface in order to build up that intelligence, you're also putting in a dependency on the user interface. That means that if the user interface changes, and that happens whenever there's a new release, your intelligence might not be working. And that's not just going to seem unintelligent. That's going back again to the GPS from 1934. So it's very, very important that all of the elements that we are talking around now, that they are part of a maintenance cycle, and that your DAS actually supports that maintenance cycle. So I think that we're going to see something on improved contextualization. You can say that most of the digital adoption solutions out there, they're going in two directions. So they're either saying we are generic, we can cover everything, or they're saying we want to be specialized. We want to be able to serve, let's say, the Microsoft portfolio or product really, really well and better than the rest of them. And I think that that's one of the standpoints that we've been taking, is that we have generic technologies that will enable you to do almost on anything. And then we have something that is highly specialized, written towards some of the vendors that we say these are really, really important, that we can provide better experiences. That goes with automated upgrade between versions of content, so we'll upgrade that for you. Automated replay back in the application, so we'll keep all your content current even though vendors have changed your system. And also something around the improved contextualization. In most UIs today, you can actually collect a lot of things inside the system, things like role. Probably you can have something around how experienced is the user, how long time have you been with the company, and also, of course, collecting on a data collection. What are the processes that you're normally using, right? There's no need to take someone who's never been inside, let's say on your MPR module in your manufacturing business. There's no reason to start showing you processes around that, because the likelihood is that you're not using them, right? You've used 100 other processes, but not this one. And all of this collection of data, I just want to say that is really, really, there's a great opportunity for most vendors to do machine learning around this and be able to do better predictions on what is the right content to present for the users the next time. Then we can see that, a lot of the digital adoption solutions out there are now trying to see if they can get into some of the other application areas, Mac, mobile applications. It could be Windows applications, but they're really stuck on the web technology. Yeah, so finally, around the improved application support, the idea that we can navigate not just within your web-based applications, but across Windows applications, across web applications, do that seamlessly for the user, because these applications exist and they will exist for a long time yet to come. And this is simply an enterprise requirement.
And if I could just, if I can just add to you're talking about data. If you heard Charles Lamanna, the head of Dynamics from Microsoft, he did a keynote at Microsoft Success Day and Dynamics Con, and he talked about data, right? The importance of data going forward. And I think, Microsoft's finally realizing, and they probably realized this for a while, that if everybody's going to get into these AI tools that are supposed to be our future, then we need better quality one source data to be able to understand what's going on. So if we're looking to move to the cloud, we're looking to get rid of siloed systems, getting that data consolidated in one set of truths that we can use tools against are going to be even more so important in the future. So, and that's all part of digital adoption and getting people to understand how to add the data, why they need to add the data, and at the end of the day, monitoring that they're getting this done.
I agree with you. And I think from Microsoft's perspective, this has to do with the telemetry around how is our software being used, because that just carries a lot of money, right? If we can predictably say that the software is dropping in usage, that's worth a lot of money, because now we have now we can do a really, really good collection of the client, making sure that we get them back on track and get them into the right place. And that type of data, it has a very natural ownership with the digital adoption solution. All right, so I'll move on, and I think this is actually our final slide today, Rick, and talking a little bit about what is the frontier of digital adoption. I'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the industry, And I'll share with you some of the concerns that I'm having, at least when I look across a broad industry of around 450 vendors or something that all deliver these types of applications. So one of the areas that we are seeing is, of course, the rise of AI. I don't think anyone that has engaged with ChatGPT is not at least mildly concerned about where is our future going, and where did my skill set go all of a sudden. And I know that there's a lot of research being done here in the AI area inside DAS as well. So one of them is Adept, that are doing something massively and saying that they're putting up a generic model around this. I think it's fair to say that there's it's in the future. It's not in the near future that we're going to see something that just out of the box automatically will adapt to any UI and just tell you what to do inside any UI. But other areas of applications are obviously the idea behind machine learning, and some of the data we are collecting on utilization of the application, where users breaking off inside processes, that's actually really, really valuable, not just in terms of how well have we adopted the user, but also in how well is our application serving the business needs, and why are we getting wrong data into our system, and where is that happening. Those types of applications we are going to see increase, I think, in the future. And I know that we are working intensively on this, so we'll probably have something by the end of the year where we are going to show you something that's completely new in this area. And then, there's we are all very, very much in love in our industry with our own product. So there's absolutely no interoperability between these vendor products, right? If you have an authoring solution from, let's say, a vendor like us, we have no interest in making sure that actually works inside your delivery platform from another vendor. We're going to have to break those barriers down, because there's only one that's suffering from this. That's the client. And because the client is going to receive multiple digital adoption solutions from multiple vendors, we need to overcome a common standard for how do we interop between vendor products, and how do we make sure that we can serve everyone independent of what solution they actually chose in the beginning. So I think that that's a very, very large challenge ahead of the entire vendor or community in order to drive this forward. Then I don't think that there are very, very few out there that have a great solution for what I call the maintenance problem. The idea that it's very, very easy to create these GPS routes. It's very, very difficult to actually update them when the road changes. And the major problem is, if you imagine that you have this deployed across 178 systems, you have maybe 10, 15 key processes in each of them. That would bring you up to around 2,000 processes that you can now start monitoring on a quarterly basis and manually finding out whether this is broke or not, right? And you're also relying on your end user community to come back to you and say, look, this is not working anymore. And when they've done that 10 times, they're just going to stop, right? They're not going to report it anymore. They're just not going to use it. And so we need to solve the maintenance problem. I think that we have a fairly good solution to this, which is the replay. It basically means that you can take all of your processes, replay them back on a new updated system, and we'll do a complete report for you and show you what's not working and what is working. And if everything is working, we've updated all the content, all the videos, all the hands-on labs, and so forth. But I think that there's a general challenge in the entire digital adoption industry here. Then I think that we are probably going to see that the digital adoption solutions are now going to break up into multiple categories. So we'll have someone that's an expert in doing the delivery platform, and someone that's really good on the authoring side. And we're going to have to leverage that and see how can we better. And this goes back to the interoperability as well. We need to be better able to interop. Now, finally, there's the idea that we can improve the contextualization of the content we're showing by means of machine learning. And when I say that, it's really around the idea that, let's imagine that you have maybe 100 processes in a single system. And maybe each of them, they actually touch on a specific screen, the account screen. Now, how do I make sure that when the user navigates to the account screen that I'm showing the right things? And this is where machine learning comes in, because we know something about the user. We know what category they're in. We know what they've been doing before. And all of this is really candidates for doing this. And then finally, the triangle. I think we're going to see more vendors trying to solve that triangle between vendor, partner, and enterprise. And of course, the vendor specialization. I think we're going to see someone who's saying, I'm only doing AutoCAD. I'm only doing SAP. I'm not covering all of the areas of all applications in the future. So this is a little view into the future of what's going to happen, Rick.
Okay, excellent. I think this kind of covers almost our entire conversation today. So let's go to our next slide, and we'll let people know how they can get a hold of ClickLearn. So, you can tell them a little bit about your product and what Microsoft applications you support.
Well, I mean, we support, we are very, very true to the entire Microsoft ecosystem. We are working with 150 partners within every area of Dynamics. We have a support for Power Platforms, and we also have a special strategic alliance around the ISVs that are actually driving their software inside this industry. Obviously, we have a lot of custom application knowledge as well. But one of the things that is truly setting us apart from the remainder of them is that we are built around the idea that we need to cater for the triangle of vendor, partner, and client, and make sure that everyone contributes, and we are not wasting people's energy and time in redoing something that they should be able to get from somewhere for free. I think that our technology, when it comes to recording, we are specialized on a number of platforms, and we have the same generic technology that most of the DASs have out there. But where we really want to be measured is on our specialized technology, and that's around F&O, BC, and CE. And I think that the Microsoft community, if you get into trying to use ClickLearn, you will see that we have better recognition of what's going on inside the application. We actually understand what the user is doing on the application, and that creates just better instructions for the end user. In terms of learning formats, we are capable of deploying that in a number of ways, obviously in independent 24/7 open learning platform, but we can also put it directly into your application and make sure that it serves the user in there.
Okay, great. And we're going to be at Directions in Florida, which is the Microsoft Business Central Partner Show, as a Diamond sponsor. And I also noticed that your Capterra reviews are at 4.9 out of 5, which are most excellent.
Yeah, I have 3 priorities, and 2 first are customers.
Okay, great. So Jochen, let the people know how they can get a hold of you and find out more about ClickLearn.
Yeah, I think the first natural place to start is obviously to visit www.clicklearn.com. But if you have a specific question around the presentation I've made today, I'll be very, very happy to serve you. We are serving all regions of the world, so I'll put you in contact with whoever you need to talk to inside our organization to get the answers to your questions.
Okay, so thank you for your time today, and I'm sure we'll be back to you at some point in the near future to talk more about digital adoption.
Thank you, Rick.